Who's actually going to get the most out of a high-end trinocular stereo microscope? And who would be better off putting their money towards something simpler? Is the AmScope SM6TZ 54S 10M worth the price tag for the everyday hobbyist? Or is it a tool that only serious labs and professionals should be paying for? Those are the questions that keep most people up at night before they click Add to Cart. And I'm going to break them down for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of work this microscope is built for. The SM6TZ has an articulating arm that stretches a full 40 inches, which means you can mount it over a workbench, a large board, or even a tabletop with a clamp and still have the head hovering where you need it. That reach is a game changer when you're doing PCB rework, inspecting small mechanical parts, or dissecting a biological specimen that can't fit under a traditional bench microscope. The long working distance, paired with a 0.7x to 4.5x continuous zoom objective, lets you stay several centimeters away from the sample while still seeing fine surface details. In real life, that translates to being able to solder a tiny SMD component without the lens touching the board, or to watch a beetle wing's vein pattern without having to crank the magnification up to a point where depth of field disappears. Now, who should really consider spending on this model? If you're an electronics hobbyist who routinely does surface mount repairs, a jeweler who needs to examine setting stones, a hobby biologist doing slide-free dissections, or a small-scale manufacturer that needs to do quality checks on parts under 10 millimeters, the combination of the trinocular head and the digital interface makes a lot of sense. The trinocular design means you can keep both eyes on the sample while a third port feeds a camera directly to a monitor. That's huge when you're teaching a class, recording a tutorial, or simply need a larger view to share with a colleague without crowding around the eyepieces. The removable LED ring light, with its rheostat control, gives you a smooth way to dial in illumination without flicker, which matters when you're trying to capture crisp images for documentation. On the flip side, there are clear reasons to walk away. If your typical projects never exceed a few millimeters in size, or you only need low magnification for quick visual checks, the SM6TZ is probably overkill. Its price sits in the upper range for hobby gear, and the arm and clamp system take up a good amount of bench space. For someone who works in a cramped studio, the 40-inch reach could actually become a nuisance rather than a benefit. Also, while the microscope includes a digital output, you'll still need a compatible camera or capture device to take full advantage of the trinocular port. The system doesn't come with a high-resolution camera bundled, so you'll be adding another expense if you want that functionality. Let's get into some practical strengths that show up after you've unboxed and set it up. The first thing I noticed is how easy it is to adjust the arm. The joints lock firmly but still move smoothly, so you can swing the head over a large printed circuit board, lock it, and then fine-tune the height without the whole rig wobbling. That stability matters when you're doing a delicate solder joint, and any shake could ruin the component. The LED ring light's intensity curve feels linear, which is a subtle but important detail. You can set it to a low glow for translucent samples, then bump it up a notch for reflective metal without sudden jumps that would force you to readjust focus. Another everyday win is the 10x super-widefield eyepieces. They give a broader field of view than the typical 8x or 6x eyepieces you see on cheaper models, so you can see more of the sample at once. When you're aligning a multi-pin connector or looking for a hairline crack on a machined part, that extra context can save you minutes of hunting. Because the zoom is continuous, you don't have to switch objectives or guess the next magnification. You just turn the focus knob and watch the image smoothly transition from a wide overview to a close-up. That fluid zoom is especially handy when you're documenting a process. You can start with a full view, then zoom in for detail, and the camera feed will capture the whole sequence. Of course, no piece of equipment is perfect. One practical weakness that shows up is the learning curve for the lighting. The ring light sits around the objective, and while the rheostat gives you brightness control, positioning the light correctly for highly reflective or translucent samples can require a few trial runs. If you're used to a coaxial illuminator that sits directly under the sample, you'll need to adjust your technique a bit. Also, because the microscope is fairly heavy, the arm and stand together weigh several kilograms. You'll want a sturdy desk or bench. Trying to mount it on a flimsy tabletop can lead to vibrations that,